Oh, we're on? Oh, shit. Okay.
I
I
think we're
love that
rolling, Mr.
song.
Roberts.
I like that song. I don't know why. I don't know why I like that so much. The
That's okay.
song that I stole from somebody. Actually, it's copyright free music. Anybody can get it. Anybody can download that on the internet. Folks, welcome to Classic Rock Echoes, courtesy of the Squared Circle Maniacs YouTube channel. And through the magic of Wi-Fi, we bring you another episode, our second episode. My name's Johnny Bottles, and I am joined by Motorhead 711, the ringleader, the godfather, if you will, of the SCM, the Squared Circle Maniacs on Twitter. We are a group of like-minded individuals that love classic rock music, heavy metal. Actually, not just heavy metal. You can't really pigeonhole what we like. We like all kinds of different music, right, Motor?
That's right, man. It
Yeah.
just runs the whole gamut, man. Everything. If we like it, we hear it, we play it, we buy it.
A
That's
good
it.
song is a good song, right? A good album is a
song
good album.
is a good song. A good album is a good album. Absolutely.
That's
How you
right.
doing, Bottles?
I'm doing good, buddy. How's your day?
Not too bad. Drove the truck this morning, didn't kill any hobos, which was nice. So everything is good. Everything is rock and rolling. So
We'll tell the hobos. Don wants to tell the hobo killer story one day when we do the wrestling podcast. We'll talk about that because Don would love to actually tell that story.
Yes, absolutely,
folks. It's a show. Believe me, it's a good 15-minute story after Don Wayne gets done embellishing it. By the way, speaking of Don Wayne, Don has tomorrow night at 6:00 the Squared Circle Gridiron. It's our football show. He's joined by the great Ricky Liberati and Ron Cars or Karras. How do you pronounce Ron's last name?
Mr. High Desert Ron.
High Desert Ron, we'll call him for that matter.
Yes,
Mr.
Sir.
High Desert Ron, the illustrious High Desert Ron, three football prognosticators who will titillate your pigskin juices while they talk about NCAA football, NFL football. They'll talk about Colorado having a phenomenal football club out there right now. They'll talk Deion Sanders, and I'm sure they're going to talk about Nick Chubb and that. It's got to be a career-ending injury that poor kid got last night.
Juju. If you watch the game, like our good friend Beer Man, Mr. At Cleaning Towels, had mentioned, he goes, "This is not breaking news. If you watch the game, you saw what happened. It's not breaking." And that was a damn good point he said today on Twitter. So, Beer Man, mugs up on that one, buddy.
If you saw that injury, they wouldn't replay it because it was so gruesome, and it was kind of awful. There's no blood involved, folks. No bone poking through, but picture every ligament in a man's knee being completely shredded, every ligament, and a joint bending in a direction it's not supposed to bend.
Right.
They wouldn't play it. They wouldn't replay it on national television, and that was a Monday Night Football game, right? Monday Night Football it was on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Against the Steelers, man. And you know, I got to say something. I mean, we're doing rock and roll stuff right now and music, but I was really impressed with the Cleveland uniform with those white helmets. I don't know, man. I just kind of liked it. I thought it looked kind of clean, man. That was classy. That looked good. Looked good. And my wife was happy. She's a Steelers fan, so she was all stoked. But
like the great Dusty Rhodes would say, looking clean as a Safeway chicken.
Exactly right. Yes, sir.
All right, let's get into we got a comment of there's Scud. Ow.
Scud.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I saw that somebody replayed it on Twitter. I don't know how they had access to it. I saw the clip on Twitter this morning. My God, it was brutal. Yeah. I hurt just looking at it. From the comfort of my bed, I hurt. So, anyway, what we do on this show is we talk about different things in classic rock. Motorhead will come up with a topic. I'll come up with a topic. But he came up with the topics for both these iterations during this show. What was your first concert as a child, as a young adult, or whatever you were as a teen that you actually went to? Motorhead, what was the first show you saw and what venue was it in?
Very first show I ever saw. Now, this may tickle some people's brains because it goes back quite a few years. It was in the early 80s. I want to say 82, 83. There was a band coming out of the Pacific Northwest called Rail, and they had a video on MTV that won the new band awards, and they put their video out there, and they played at the Jefferson Square Mall in Klamath Falls, Oregon, and we used to go there on Sundays and walk around the mall. There was an arcade there called the Time Machine. Me and my brother would just go crazy in. But they were playing at the mall after this video got released on MTV, and little short half pint bass singer wore like these goat legging things, our bass player singer, little guy, blonde hair, fire plug, do the big kicks and everything. That was my very first live concert experience. Very first live concert experience as far as seeing a band going, wow, I really dig these dudes. Now, the very first concert that I ever went to that I paid admission for, I had to go back and look through my binder and see, goddamn, which was the first show I ever went to. So that first show I went to, I saw Motley Crue and Accept in Santa Rosa at the War Memorial Theater, which was across from the fairgrounds. And that was 1985. I was 12 years old, and my aunt took me to that show. That was my first real and I was scared to death. I'm not going to, I loved music. My dad, my uncle got me into it, and I started progressing through the 80s as far as going from, Steppenwolf and BTO and Led Zeppelin, just moved up the ladder. Then the 80s hit, and you had all the bands coming out like, Motley Crue and Wasp and all that stuff. So went to that show, and I saw all these heshers, these metalheads with leather and the denim and the spikes. I'm like, man, and I was hooked. I was hooked from the first show I went to. I'm like, this is it. I'm going to be into this stuff the rest of my life. Bottles, how about you, brother?
Well, wait a minute. Let's go back to Rail for a second here.
Yeah.
I just looked up Rail on Wikipedia.
Uh-huh.
Let's take a look at Rail. Did you see them? What year was it when you saw them?
God, I was 83 or 84.
That's when they won. They won the grand prize on MTV's Basement Tapes. Remember that show? In 1983.
Yes, sir.
And they were they operated in the area. Did you see them with Ronnie Montrose?
No.
Because he was a member of Rail.
I did not, and I found that out later. I saw him with the original lineup, which was a 4-piece, but I never saw him with Montrose. And I really felt bad for this band because a couple of the songs they had that they were, for the time, they were right on the money, man. They hit the target. But yes, I never got to see him with Ronnie Montrose, and boy, what a treat that would have been, because what a phenomenal guitar player.
That would have been awesome, wouldn't it? That really would have been fantastic. Let's see. Oh, look at these guys.
There it is.
Nothing screams 1980s like, where are they? There they are right there.
Imagine being in the arcade. You got the guy with the spandex shirt on, the hair, it just fit it was perfect. And those guys, I really hoped as a kid, though, they would have taken off a little bit more, but it got saturated at that time. So many of the bands came along, especially, the LA scene, which we'll get into another podcast someday. Once they took over, it was shit. If you were from the Pacific Northwest, very few metal bands came from there. Rail, Queensryche's another one that was from the Pacific Northwest. But I was really rooting for these guys because it was my first real, visceral experience of a band I saw on TV. I'm like, man, this is great, and I thought they were awesome. I still have couple albums of them, so
what a crew. Look at these guys.
Yeah, look at that.
Rail Arrival. I like the guy right here I like the guy on the far right.
Oh my God, look at him.
Mr. Motorhead, I'm here to date your daughter. I'm here to take your daughter to the dance.
Walking to a bar right now looking like that guy. Hey, can I get a Schlitz? Come on, give me a Schlitz. People be looking at you like, where the hell did this guy come from?
What do we got here? We've got Scud saying, I would always go to local shows on the weekends coming up. The first big one was probably Kiss, Nugent, and Skid Row. What a lineup that would be, man.
Dude,
good Lord.
Hell yes.
Good Lord. And then you have Chris Montrose, as in Hagar. Yes, that Ronnie Montrose. That Ronnie Montrose was a member of Rail before he became big. He was just starting out, I guess. And Ricky Libbs, who you'll see on Squared Circle Gridiron tomorrow. Ooh, my first concert was the Cult. The Cult opening for Metallica. Can you imagine that? In 1989 in Philly, he was 14. It changed his life. That was, good Lord Almighty.
Absolutely, man. I have a ticket stub still when Metallica opened for Y&T. I remember Y&T Yesterday and Today.
Yes.
Dave Meniketti. I have a ticket. So when Metallica opened for Y&T, this was like 85. And I show people the ticket. They're like, Metallica open? I'm like, yeah, man. Yeah, Y&T was already established. Hey, what's up, Ricky Lips?
What's going on, Rick?
Y&T. Let's hear yours. Let's because you're you're a few years older than I am, but we all like the same stuff. So what was your first real concert that you went, wow, I'm digging it. I'm digging the scene. I'm digging the music.
The first concert I went to was it was the early era of Fleetwood Mac. Fleetwood Mac, when they came out with the White Album. Bob Welch, who did Sentimental Lady with the group, he left the group, and they go out on his own, and he put out Sentimental Lady as a single on his own, but his big hit was Ebony Eyes. Ebony, remember that song?
Oh, of course.
Ebony Eyes. Then he did his remake of Sentimental Lady, which Christine McVie also guested on and sang backup vocals on and keyboards. And then he had a second album, which was the big hit off of that was Precious Love. And then he couldn't get any traction. Remember that song? That was a great song.
Yes, I do.
He couldn't. He was a good rock and roll guitarist, a good picker, finger picker. Picture very much in the vein of Lindsey Buckingham, that sort of guitar work, but a lot more power chords if you can visualize that on his solo albums. However, he couldn't get any more traction, and in the music business, just it wasn't working out for him. He was probably considered an oldies act in the later stages of his career, and he was diagnosed with some sort of disease. I forgot what it was. It was incurable, and he committed suicide. Shot himself in the chest. Bob Welch. Sad way to go out. That song alone, "Sentimental Lady," that he wrote for Fleetwood Mac, was fantastic. I believe it was off the album "Heroes Are Hard to Find," if I'm not mistaken. But anyway. The iteration of Fleetwood Mac I saw was the White Album version of Fleetwood Mac, where Buckingham and Nicks joined the group, consisting of Christine McVie, Mick Fleetwood, and John McVie, her husband at the time. They shuffled the deck quite a bit there, flipped partners around quite a bit in Fleetwood Mac. But they were the opening act. They were the opening act for Mother Effin' Heart.
Oh, so Heart was the headliner and Fleetwood Mac.
Heart was the headliner. Because they came out first, they were more successful first with the Dreamboat Addy album, where the two girls, white background, Heart, the silhouette behind them, and the two girls were like back to back. They could have been naked completely. They were only shot from the cleavage up, and just to get fanboys like me all fired up. I love that goddamn album.
They were fantastic.
They were good.
Great performers.
Very good.
Still sound phenomenal. And my God, talk about visual candy. Holy mother of God.
And hey, for two women in their 70s right now, out on the road, rocking and rolling, not hateful looking. Ann Wilson still got a hell of a set of pipes. She can't hit those high notes like she could, but she still can blast it out there. And I defy anybody to try to stack up another female singer to Ann Wilson singing Barracuda.
Oh, my God.
Good Lord. Or even, for that matter, Crazy on You.
Love that one.
Love that one, too.
My favorite.
Magic Man.
God damn, I love that song.
They didn't want to put Magic Man on the album. And they didn't. They
thought it was going to be a minor hit. And Ann was like, no, I think we should push this one. And shit, you listen to FM radio now, that's a thing in the past, FM radio, but classic rock radio stations, podcasts, classic rock radio, they always play that song still in Heart's catalog. That's one of the ones you hear often.
Right. So a buddy of mine said, hey, these two girls want to go see Heart. It's going to be fantastic. And I was, in high school. It's going to be great. It's going to be the greatest thing ever. Let's get some tickets. How much are they? I think they're like $15. $15 to see frickin' Heart and Fleetwood Mac. $15. That's all my beer money.
Isn't that amazing to go back and look at some of your tickets and think about the prices compared the bands you saw then and how much you paid and what they're charging now for the ones that are still around. I mean, I had a friend that just paid $2,200 for one Metallica ticket.
There's no way. There's
Never.
no way in hell.
For $2,200, you could buy their entire catalog, a badass stereo, and have enough money to party yourself to death on the weekend with lewds, blow, whatever the hell you wanted for $2,200.
I'd rather smoke weed in my living room and watch a video of the concert and stand in my own urine and drink beer.
That's right.
That's what I'd rather do, is spend $2,200.
Yes,
Go
sir.
to hell. Good Lord.
It's ridiculous. Ridiculous the ticket prices nowadays. And I feel
Those
bad.
guys are, and they're freaking senior citizens.
They're senior citizens. And they're not playing the same. They're getting older. And I honestly feel bad for some of these younger guys that are getting into it, younger people that want to go see these shows and they shell out that money. And then you talk to them, you're like, dude, I was just looking at my ticket stubs earlier. The first Metallica concert I saw was when the Black Album came out. That was the first Metallica show I went to. That was $40. $40. Now, Ozfest, the first one I went to in 2002 with all the bands that played at that one, that was $86 for like 30 bands, man.
Chris says, and Chris,
Stone Temple Pilot.
Look up Positively Chris on Twitter. This is who Chris is. Always has uplifting and thoughtful messages throughout the day. They get you motivated to put your shoes on and go and grab that cup of coffee and head out the door and take on whatever challenges the day or your job might impress upon you. So follow Positively Chris on Twitter. He's a good dude. My first concert was STP, Stone Temple Pilots, in 1994. Scott Weiland was solid that night. Back in 94, he was at the peak of his powers, man. He was fantastic. Absolutely. Before the heroin had a hook in him. He was great back then. God, Interstate Love Song, Plush. When he would come on the radio, I heard that for the first time. I'm going, what am I listening to? Good Lord, it was fantastic.
Think fantastic about the big four singers for that scene in Seattle. 3 of them are gone. Kurt Cobain,
Cornell,
Chris Cornell,
Chester Bennington.
Also, God damn it, I'm drawing a blank, Johnny.
Was Linkin Park Cali or were they Seattle?
They were the more southern scene as far as music goes, but the big four that are God damn it, why am I drawing a blank? This stupid Gatorade. Chris Cornell.
You got a little vodka in that Gatorade?
There might be. Kurt Cobain and Eddie Vedder's still alive. He was one of the big four. And the other one is Lane Staley from Alice in Chains.
Lane Staley.
Which I was fortunate to see 1991 on the Clash of Titans tour. They opened for Slayer, Anthrax, and Megadeth. Now, Death Angel was on that tour, and they were coming back from, I think it was Texas, and they got in a bus crash. So they had to replace a band. So we got this band from Seattle coming out called Alice in Chains, and Facelift had just come out. Facelift just came out. And they opened the show. We were in Sacramento at Arco Arena, and it was me and my brother and 2 of my buddies, and like Alice in Chains, I'd never even heard of them. Never heard of them. And then they come out there and start ripping into it. I was like, holy shit, dude, these guys are badass. And full on like Sabbath. It was like so loud. And dude, Lane Staley was amazing. Amazing.
What about Jerry Cantrell? Jerry Cantrell. Great guitarist.
God. Excellent.
Great guitarist. Yeah. And a great vocalist.
Boggy Depot, his solo album is one of my favorites, man. That's good shit.
What was that song that they did a duet? It was Cantrell and Lane Staley, and it was a single. Heaven Inside You or Heaven Beside You?
Heaven Beside You, I believe it was.
Was that the name of it? It was like an acoustic kind of thing with it brought in some power chords. I got a computer right in front of me, and I'm asking you. I could just be Googling that shit right now.
I know the song, yeah.
Yes, it's Heaven Beside You, I believe it was. And it was him and Staley sang like harmony vocals on it, lead vocals. It was fantastic. Cantrell is a good friend with the Seattle connection. He's good friends with Ann and Nancy Wilson.
Yeah.
And I think Alice in Chains opened up on a couple Heart tours.
I believe you
Or
are correct, sir.
Yes.
And he was also buddies with really good buddy. And I think he went to school with one of the guys that started Sub Pop Records, which was huge at us. That was one of the labels that signed all those bands at that time, you know? And God, what a scene. And it transcended what was going on. Metal at that time, which they called metal, was diluted.
Hair metal.
Sound the same, hair metal. Everybody's video was the same. And I was even getting some like, dude, I just can't. And thank God I listened to a lot of other stuff because at that time it was dying out. And then boom, here comes the Seattle scene. You know, Smells Like Teen Spirit came on MTV. And then pretty soon you couldn't go anywhere without hearing that song, you know. And then I actually discovered Soundgarden earlier with the Louder Than Love album. I got that was like not their first album. The first album was the Omega what's it called, the Omega X one. But found that cassette at a Kmart in town, bought it. I'm like, Soundgarden, these guys are cool. Never heard of them because the cover showed Chris Cornell banging his head. I'm like, well, he's got long hair and he's banging it, might be good. Hooked from.
Here's one for you. Do you remember Temple of the Dog?
Oh, the whole All-Star band. Yes, I do.
That was Pearl Jam, members of Pearl Jam, and members of Soundgarden. And the lead singer of that group was Chris Cornell, I believe.
Eddie Vedder threw some
harmony vocals in there.
But
Hunger Strike.
Hunger Strike. That was the one that they played the living crap out of that on MTV. Played the crap out of that. Great stuff, man. I mean, it was a breath of fresh air at that time for music that you would call heavy, and it kind of rolled in the whole alternative scene where I think if you didn't have that happen, you wouldn't have had bands like Marcy Playground, Cake, those guys that come along that played stuff a little different, but it's still good music. So that the alternative scene I like because it encompassed so much in it. If that makes sense. It wasn't just heavy. It wasn't light. It was a lot of it was mixed up. You know what I mean?
It was. And the Seattle scene, the grunge music scene at that time, and you touched on it a few minutes ago. It put the final nail in the coffin of bands like Rat, Poison, Quiet Riot, Great White.
Yep,
all those hair bands that everyone loved at the time that played that bubblegum heavy metal that everybody loved. Round and round, what goes? You couldn't. Every time you turned the radio, when you would hear that,
right?
Talk Dirty to Me.
Oh God, yeah, Poison. That
Don't Mean Nothing But a Good Time.
Yep.
And Once Bitten, Twice Shy, which was an old Mott the Hoople song.
Yes.
What else?
Yes.
Or Ian Hunter's song. No, I think Ian Hunter, who was the lead singer and songwriter from Mott the Hoople, that was on his solo album, Once Bitten, Twice Shy. I forgot what the name of that solo album was. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Glam metal, like The Sweet, bands like that, it just completely, even in the United States, to an extent, groups like Queen and Bad Company, it buried them. You didn't hear them play that much on the radio with their current product that they were putting out. That was just wiped clean in the United States. Of course, the death of Freddie Mercury in '92, I believe it was, when all this was going on, contributed to Queen disappearing. But
of course. And how can you replace a guy like that? You can't,
Yeah, Ricky Stubbs, 100%. It was the beginning of the end for the hair bands. And I loved the Seattle scene, the depressing music, a lot of it was. Because, it always rains in Seattle. They hardly have any sunny days there. But I loved the bubblegum, coarse, hooky type glam metal songs, those groups. I love those songs that they put out. I love Talk Dirty to Me and Don't Mean Nothing But a Good Time. I didn't like Every Rose Has Its Thorn. I think they needed a power ballad. I didn't care for that much. That was like, when you go to the concert, that's the one that your date's standing there and singing back and forth, spilling her beer down her arm.
Oh, yeah. You remember the whole ballad trend, the power ballad. Everybody was doing it. Cheap Trick had a power ballad. Everybody had a power ballad song. And it brought the women to the shows, the housewives, the mall. I always called that stuff mall rock because you'd go in the mall and pretty soon here comes Poison or here comes Firehouse or something like that. And they're playing all the slow songs, Firehouse finally found the love of a lifetime. And you started hearing it all over the place. And I'm like, uh-oh, dude, this is, and you can't call it like heavy metal. To me, it got to the point where you couldn't call that stuff heavy metal anymore. Like there was very few bands, I think, that kept their
That's a great point you're making, right? It's a great point. Keep going.
Era. You know what I mean? There was very few bands that kept the integrity of what the rawness, the grittiness, from the street, the fuck you, I'll kick your ass attitude. It started to go away. And then a lot of the bands that had the substance, like Armored Saint, Trouble, Icon, a lot of these bands, they just disappeared because it all went for the pretty, all stuff and not enough, all shit and no get.
I can say one thing that to touch upon what you just mentioned before I forget, because I do have brain damage, by the way. I have ADHD. All I can say is I've never heard, growing up in the mean streets of Baltimore, Maryland, I've never heard played on the radio, Armored Saint, Icon, and what was that other band you mentioned?
Armored Saint, Icon, and Jesus Christ, my brain bottles. Trouble from
Trouble. I've never heard those bands played on the radio.
Trouble
Was it?
Was one of the they kept that Sabbath sound, as far as I'm concerned, alive for a long time. And Eric Wagner, lead singer, dude, Dave Grohl did an album called Probot, where he got his favorite people to do songs with him. He had Lemmy on there from Motorhead. He had Eric Wagner from Trouble. He had King Diamond from Merciful Fate. So he honored all these guys that he grew up with, listening to all the time, and made the album. If you don't have it, check out Probot. Go to Spotify. It's on there, and listen to the all-star list. It's excellent. A lot of those bands, they fell short of what the media wanted, of what MTV wanted, of what the radios wanted. They wanted those songs that would get women into it, that would get kids into it, that metal lost its teeth.
They were looking for pretty people to put on their TV screens with fast 3-minute songs with catchy hooks and memorable choruses that you wouldn't forget. That's what they were looking for.
Trickster? Remember the band Trickster?
I remember Trickster.
Okay.
I heard Trickster on the radio. Yeah, I remember Trickster.
Tora, Dangerous Toys.
Dangerous Toys I've heard, but not Tora Tora.
Kingdom Come.
We got some comments.
Let's see.
Do you consider Motley Crue a hair band or a rock band? That's a good question.
Who said that? Ricky Lives. Ricky, I'm going to tell you right now, Motley Crue was a rock band before Girls, Girls, Girls came out, in my opinion. And it's borderline with Theater of Pain. Borderline. My Crue albums are Shout Out the Devil, of course, and Too Fast for Love. Those are my Crue albums right there. And then they started getting a little glammy. And I remember my sister bought me a poster for Girls, 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 and it was Motley Crue. And she's like, "Here, Merry Christmas." I'm like, "That's great." I looked at it. I'm like, "That's not Motley Crue. I don't know who those guys are." Good point.
Scud says, all I need is 3 chords and a 1-2-1-2.
AC/DC, baby.
The Ramones.
Then the Ramones. Yep.
They had 2 chords, didn't they? Maybe one, if they were lucky.
That's right.
That's right. Chris said, y'all made me listen to River of Deceit by Mad Season now. What a tune.
Oh, excellent song.
Yeah.
Excellent song. I had to learn to play the intro for me and my second wife, my wife now, our wedding. I had to learn to play that intro because that's one of her favorite songs. And she's a Lane. Right. If you mention Lane Staley to her, she'll get teary-eyed. And what's really cool is she's 100% Mexican. You don't see that much in Hispanic chicks. They like rock, but she is full on like a rocker from the 80s. And you if she watches anything on Lane Staley, hears about Lane Staley, she gets sad because she loved him so much.
Damn. Wow. What could have been? You look at guys like that and you think about, well, how would their career have turned out if they?
They'd still be playing. Damn well, because Alice Chase moved on with what's his name that from the band Comes with the Fall, and I've seen both versions, and he's excellent. He's an excellent replacement. A lot of people give him shit. I love the guy. But
they're very conspicuous by their absence on the charts. They just can't. They can't replicate what they had with Lane Staley. I don't know what his input was in the songwriting, whether he was a lyricist, whether he came up with some of the melodies. I don't know. You would probably know that better than I would. I didn't really listen to a lot of the grunge music because I found a lot of it. I listened to the hits on the radio, but the album tracks and all that, I found it all very depressing. I know I shouldn't. I know you guys like that kind of stuff. You like that kind of music, but you like all kinds of music, I can safely say about you. You like all kinds of music. But I found a lot of that type of stuff depressing. I don't know why. I had to mix in like some Southern rock, some of the hair metal, Bad Company, stuff like that. I had to mix in with my, some of the oldies when I was doing playlists, listen to this shit in the car on a cassette tape deck, that sort of thing. Rick Libbs wants to know if you have any guitar skills.
Yes, I do. They're sitting over there.
How many you got?
I have my acoustic, I have my electric, I have my 6-string electric bass, and I have 3 amps. Ricky Libb, go to Spotify and look up the band Pariah, Parriah. And that's one of me and my buddies, Mike Marin, our project that we did several years ago, and we don't have many followers, but our stuff's on there. So I helped him write a lot of the songs. Check it out, brother. But yes, I can play, and I've been playing since I was in 7th grade. I still have my PV Patriot bass. That was my tool of ignorance, as Blackie Lawless calls it. Bass is the tools of ignorance. Can you jam a little for us? Shit. On the next show, you damn right. I'll have everything plugged in. I'll play some riffs for you, buddy. No problem.
What guitar do you have? What electric guitar do you have?
I have an Epiphone Special. I can't get to it. It's right here.
Is that a hollow body? Is that a hollow body like the like a Gretsch?
Solid body.
Solid body.
Solid neck too, yeah.
Is that like the Gibson SG, or is it modeled after a Gibson Les Paul?
It looks like an Les Paul, but it's an Epiphone, so it's not the real expensive one.
Exactly. Right. But they were still great guitars. A lot of
I love it.
Those the cheaper model guitars, which Epiphone is.
Yeah.
We can accept that fact. They appeared on many a hit album and a hit record. Those Epiphone guitars,
gosh.
Just like those the Squier Stratocaster knockoffs that you see in music stores. They're like $150.
Yeah.
Those things, people take them out on tour.
Yep.
The pro musicians take those things out on tour because they know they're going to get banged up on the road, and they sound just like a Strat. They sound fantastic. I bought my youngest daughter. She taught herself how to play guitar on YouTube, so she started jamming on a Squier Strat.
Nice. And we were just talking not too long ago about you had mentioned it to me, the Les Paul show, the tribute show, with all the different bands they had on there and all the different guys that played with Les Paul. And I had never seen it before. You told me to watch it. I found it on YouTube, and man, what an amazing performance! I mean, everybody on there is just phenomenal. It's such a good show.
There was an album that he recorded, and it was his last album. Les Paul recorded up until he died, and he toured up until he died. He did spot shows, of course. You can find on YouTube clips of him playing with Jeff Beck, Brian May from Queen. I mean, they sit down and they sing. Brian May sang "Maybe Baby," the old Buddy Holly song, and Les Paul's backing him up playing guitar. When Les Paul was in a car accident decades ago, 40 years ago, he was in a car accident, and he broke his elbow, and he thought his playing days were over. And he says, "Put me in a cast so my arm's like this in playing position." So his arm was always crooked, and he couldn't put it out straight because of all the damage that was done to his right arm. It was something where he was in a he didn't have the seatbelt on, or there wasn't an airbag in the car. It was an older car. I forgot what all the parameters were of the accident. But anyway, Whoever's listening to this right now, all two of you, three of you, or we'll continue to see this down the road.
Bless you. Thank you.
Do yourself a favor. Go on Spotify, go on Pandora, go on the Apple, iTunes, the music service of your choice, and look up an album called Les Paul and Friends. You'll hear Les Paul and Jeff Beck. You'll hear Les Paul and The Edge from U2 and Johnny Resnick from the Goo Goo Dolls. They do a fantastic version of All I Want Is You by U2. You'll see, you'll hear Les Paul and Billy Gibbons and what the hell is that kid's name? He's a blues guitarist. His name escapes me for right now. He's in the vein of Stevie Ray Vaughan-ish type of kid. They play Bad Case of Loving You, the old Robert Palmer song. And they also, there's Richie Sambora, Eric Clapton, and Les Paul singing the old gospel standard that was recorded by Sam Cooke called I Wish Somebody Would Come and Ease My Troubling Mind. It was recorded by Sam Cooke and the Soul Stirrers because Sam Cooke was a gospel singer when he first got his start back in the late 50s. So they take Sam Cooke's original vocal and they play the backing tracks to it. And it's effing fantastic. I'd tell anybody to go check it out. I told Motor to check it out, and he listened to it too, didn't you?
Awesome.
What'd you think of that when you played it back?
It's ear candy for anybody that's a music fan of any type, especially guitar players. Just to hear these guys get together and do what they do, and it's flawless. Put some headphones on, have yourself a left-handed smoke, whatever your thing of choice is. If not, just breathe the air and listen to the music because it's a damn fine album. Excellent album.
We'd play a little bit of it right here, but we get a copyright strike from YouTube if we actually played an excerpt of it. And there are no live recordings of Les Paul doing these songs.
None that I can find. And I looked there
right.
for that. You show me that I can't find none. Zero.
No, I believe that was his last CD that he ever produced. He's also the father of multi-track recording, Les Paul. Les Paul would perform on stage with a 4-track reel-to-reel, and
which is awesome. Just think about that. My God,
he controlled it with a little switch attached to his guitar, and then he finally distilled the thing down into a little box that he had. Well, I can't say a little box. The goddamn thing was that big that he had mounted to his guitar, and he hit a button and play like a rhythm track. Then he hit another button and play like a bass track. He play a bass line on his guitar, and then he would play the lead over top of that live. And he would multi-track his wife, Mary Ford. She's the one who did the vocals on the song How High the Moon. Probably the man's biggest hit. Les Paul and Mary Ford was the actual name of the duo. She went on to become his wife subsequently and his widow after that. And,
yes, sir.
No, actually, he was the widower. She died before he
was
did.
The widower. That's right.
That's right. That's right.
I gotta say something real quick. Just a step off the curb for a second. Mr. Cornett and Mr. Brian Last said something about a podcast that they did an episode about people with big heads. So I think, they're talking about me having a big head about podcasters who they just look at the camera and talk, and they said that everybody's got big heads. So I think me and Mr. Bottles next week, we're going to do a show facing backwards.
We could.
What do you think, Johnny?
We could do that. Joe Bonamassa. Is that who I'm thinking? Wow. I'll let you know, Rick. Motorhead, keep talking. I'm going to go and look this up.
Joe Bonamassa is one
who was
of
on that
guys.
song?
I loved Joe Bonamassa. I saw him twice. That guy, he has played with so many different people. He did a couple different things with this gal named Beth Hart. And Beth Hart, to me, female vocalist, my God, if you want to talk about ripping your soul out listening to music, that's her. She is so wonderful. And then when Joe Bonamassa played with her, just power. Just you sit there and, dude, I saw grown men crying in the audience when I saw them in Napa, crying in the audience because of how just powerful it was, man. Joe Bonamassa is one of those dudes, virtuoso. You could tell him to play whatever, and he'll just do it. He could do it blindfolded.
All right, we're getting to the bottom of this right now, brother. Here's the album, and that's the back side of the album. And here's the front side of the album. It's called Les Paul and Friends, American Made, World Played. Mm-hmm. And that's his guitar right there. Let's go ahead and click on the roster. Okay, they do Love Sneak. That's just Love Sneaking Up on You. That was a Bonnie Raitt song. Here, I'll go down all the tracks on this album. They're all fantastic. Love Sneaking Up on You features Sting singing lead and Joss Stone. She's a young blonde-haired soul singer, rhythm and blues singer from Great Britain. Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo, the old Rick Derringer song. You remember that, don't you?
Baby. Woo,
absolutely.
Rock and roll, Hoochie, rock and roll. Yep.
He plays with Kenny Wayne Shepherd.
Another fabulous guitar player.
And Edgar Winter.
Another one.
And Noah Hunt, whoever Noah Hunt might be. Somebody Ease My Troubling Mind is Sam Cooke and Eric Clapton on that one. He does Peter Frampton's hit from the 80s, So Into You, or was it the late 70s? Remember that song he had? No, that wasn't it. So Into You was Atlanta Rhythm Section.
That was ARS, baby.
Yes, Atlanta Rhythm Section. Right. Frampton sings lead on that and also plays with Les Paul on that. How High the Moon. He covers himself, of course, to get the songwriting royalties off the album. Les Paul and Al Sue, who's a female. I think she's a Bantu vocalist from the country of Bantu. You look that one up. Bad Case of Loving You is Billy Gibbons. I Want to Know You features Neil Schon from Journey. Or Schoen, however you want to pronounce his last name.
He's a Portuguese, like me.
And Americana vocalist, Beth Hart. Ain't That Good News is another Sam Cooke song. They recycle Sam's original vocal, and Jeff Beck plays guitar on that. Let Me Roll It, the old song by Paul McCartney and Wings. My Love Is Like a Wheel, Let Me Roll It. Remember that one from Wings Over America? Features Richie Sambora playing and singing lead on that one. Caravan is Les Paul, the oldie Caravan. Good Morning Little Schoolgirl. Buddy Guy.
Chuck
Keith
Berry
Richards
did that song too.
And Rick Derringer. All I Want Is You. Johnny Resnick. Freedom Special. Les Paul and Friends. I guess the whole gang jumps on that. The 69 Freedom Special. Fly Like an Eagle is a duet with Steve Miller. And a great track, I Love You More Than You'll Ever Know, featuring Joe Perry from Aerosmith, Kenny Olson, and from Simply Red, the vocalist, Nick Hucknall.
And he's still got it, by the way.
He's still got it, man.
Yes,
he is still out there. He's still doing it. You can pick this thing up on Amazon, the CD, for $6.77.
Look at that.
The MP3 version of it's only $13.49. Or you can buy all the individual tracks, whichever tracks actually suit your fancy.
On vinyl. Yeah.
Yeah, great album. And this sucker, this guy right here, you might have seen clips of this on YouTube. Les Paul live in New York. That's an actual live concert he did. What year was this? Let me get into the
he's one of those guys. You watch his old clips and his playing was so cool. He's got this cool style how he plays. It's very fluttery,
percussive.
Man. Yes,
very percussive.
Very.
He was Final Performance Tribute began on his 90th birthday when they all went into the New York's historic Iridium Jazz Club, and they Les and all these people jammed live on this DVD. And here's some of the luminaries that were on the DVD with him. Keith Richards, the aforementioned Steve Miller and Keith Richards. Jose Feliciano from Light My Fire. Come on, baby, light my fire. You hear him every year with Feliz Navidad, folks.
Dude, California Dreamin', his version of it, still one of my favorites, man. Awesome.
I've never heard that. I've got to check that one out.
Oh, my God. One of my favorites.
Bonnie Raitt, Tony Bennett. They're all on there. And I remember when Les Paul passed away, when Jeff Beck would go on tour, he brought, I'm trying to remember the name of this female vocalist that he brought with him. She was a Imelda May. Imelda May is her name. She's a Scottish singer. She's a rockabilly type singer. When you see her perform, she's got the old retro 1950s dress and the hairstyle just so. And she comes out and she sings with multi-track vocals done live. So she's actually backing herself up with her vocals. She does How High the Moon, Mockingbird Hill, Tennessee Waltz, a bunch of songs that he recorded with Mary Ford. Jeff Beck and Imelda May paid homage to, or homage to Les Paul and Mary Ford.
Classic Rock Echoes trivia for you, sir. Name the three hot guitar players that came from the Yardbirds.
The three guitar players that came from the Yardbirds. Jeff Beck, Jimmy Page, Clapton.
Bingo! Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Exactly. Imagine that. Imagine that. My dad got me into the Yardbirds. Rave Up was his favorite album. And he's like, you got to hear these guys. This is when I was really getting into music when I was 10 years old, 10, 11 years old. And he's like, listen to these guys. And then, you know, as a music person, you do the same thing like I do, probably like a lot of other people. You start reading the liner notes. You start reading everything on the back of the albums and find out who the artists are, who's playing what. And then pretty soon you realize, I'm like, Jesus Christ, he was in Led Zeppelin. You know, he had the Jeff Beck group. He played with Rod Stewart, you know, and pretty amazing to have those three guys to start out in one band. You know what I mean?
Well, when let's see, it's back in those days when they would go. Let's use the record plant in New York City as an example. Big time recording studio, a lot of different studios, a lot of different bands would record in the different various studios in the building. And when they would take a break, they go outside and smoke, take a drink, whatever. They would listen to, because it was so loud, they would listen to the other bands record. They would even go into the engineers or producers booth just to see what was going on. And they, Jimmy Page was a renowned in England, a renowned session musician. He played on a lot of songs that were not rock and roll. He played acoustic guitar, electric jazz style guitar. If you look up that man's musical oeuvre on Wikipedia and see what he actually played on, it's amazing. The songs he played on before he became famous. And they had heard him when he needed to replace Clapton or Beck. They brought in Jimmy Page. And I remember when Jeff Beck came aboard. I'm trying to think of the order now, the pecking order of who came first in the Yardbirds. Now you got me wondering now.
Man.
Can't recall.
I think Jimmy Page was first.
Could be. It could very well be. I don't know. Let me go and Google that. What the hell? Let me go and look that up.
I know the three were prominent in the band for and then everybody just kind of took off and geez, what careers they had afterwards, right? Especially shit. I mean, if you take the echelon of like the top 10, 15 guitar players ever, those three guys got to be in there in somebody's conversation. Absolutely. You know, I think they, all three of them. God, you imagine that? Hey guys, look who we had in the band.
Their first guitarist was a guy named Anthony Topham. And when he left the group, he was replaced by Eric Clapton. Eric Clapton left in 1965 because of creative disagreements. He was replaced by Jimmy Page.
There we go. Okay, thank you.
No, I take that back. Clapton recommended Page to replace him, but Page declined, and Jeff Beck took over. Page later joined on bass. He was the bass player for the Yardbirds for a while. And Chris Dreja, who was the rhythm guitarist for the Yardbirds, said, Jimmy's too good a guitarist. We're going to switch roles. I'll take over bass. Jimmy can play guitar. So at one point in time, you had Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page at the same time in the frickin' Yardbirds. Beck left a year later, and they continued on as a four-piece. And the lead singer and the drummer, Keith Relf, was the lead singer, and Jim McCarty both left the Yardbirds because they couldn't get along with Jimmy Page.
So Dreha was in a band later called Box of Frogs. I remember
was he
that.
Really?
Yes, it was in the early 80s. He was in a band called Box of Frogs.
Amazing. I'm looking at the Wikipedia page right now. Page left in 1968, the August of 68, to form it was a new group with a couple of unknown guys, an unknown bass player and drummer and an unknown vocalist. And Keith Moon was from The Who. Heard about this new group, and he said,
"Who? Keith Moon?"
Keith Moon said that group sounds like it's going to go over as well as a Led Zeppelin. You heard of something going over like a lead balloon? Well, that's going to go over like a Led Zeppelin. That's how they got the name of the group, Led Zeppelin.
Bottles, did Keith Moon crash any cars in swimming pools?
Pal, he would throw the entire furniture of the hotel suite in swimming pools. You would be there swimming, having a good time with a couple drinks with your girlfriend. You look up, you hear, look out below, and next thing you see is a love seat coming off the balcony into the swimming pool.
I saw this one photo, and I can't remember if it was Rolling Stone magazine or what, but Keith Moon is standing by this pool, and there's a goddamn Rolls Royce in it that was hit. He drove it into the freaking pool, loaded him, and just stand there smiling, going and pointing at the car.
I'll tell you a story about when the James Gang, which was fronted by Joe Walsh, they opened for The Who on an American tour. And Joe Walsh, a lot of people don't realize this, Joe Walsh was also famous for trashing motel rooms and hotel rooms. Yep. Joe Walsh would carry a chainsaw on tour with him, and he'd wrap his head up in aluminum foil and tear out 2 eye holes, and he called himself Metalhead. And if like one of the guys in the band when they had a suite of rooms, if he would lock the door, Joe Walsh would take the chainsaw and cut a hole in the wall and step through it. Or cut a hole in the door if he couldn't figure out where the wiring might be. And he would just terrorize the hotel staff. Everything would be destroyed. The toilet, the sink would all be ripped out, loose. It was just a shit show with Keith Moon and Joe Walsh.
You imagine, management groups that go with the bands, the writers, the agents and stuff, and having to deal with that shit nowadays with the liabilities and the lawsuits. I mean, come on. That's why wrestlers don't do shit anymore. We heard all the stories about our pro wrestler heroes, all the stuff they did, and you can't do that now. I mean, even if you did, what's going to happen? You're going to get arrested, and then you're going to be ostracized on social media. Then you're fucked 10 ways to Sunday. Mm-hmm. So it's like back then, God, you got to fucking give it up for the decadence of those eras, man.
Those wrestlers. Back in the day, the wrestlers, the most exciting things that would happen would be, I got the gut in the room. I need some of the medicine, Bubba. You got the medicine? Jake, you got the medicine.
Give me the medicine.
He'd go back and bring the medicine back to the hotel room. Let me go get some ice. I go get some ice for the whiskey. He'd leave to get ice. He comes back. All the medicine's gone. She smoked it all. Get the hell out of my room.
Get out to my room.
Next thing you know, you got a naked hooker or ring rat out in the hallway of the Holiday Inn. She can't get back in the room. Thanks to the Iron Sheik.
Yep. God bless it.
Oh, my God in heaven. We didn't cover that one topic we were going to talk about. Underrated bands from the rock and roll era. Name one.
We did not talk about that. And I'm going to give you one right now.
Go. Let's do it.
They deserve, and they should, Thin Lizzy. Thin Lizzy's always mentioned in circles for certain groups, but as far as being influential and being like one of the torchbearers for what would become heavy metal, what they call proto metal, Thin Lizzy doesn't get the props they deserve. And there's another band called Leaf Hound. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of them, but Leaf Hound was another one that came out early 70s, early 70s. They had the Sabbath sound and just didn't do what they needed to do, didn't get the push from the agents, didn't get the push from the record company, didn't get the promotion. So there's so many bands out there, and we were talking about this earlier, that should have got a push, just like in pro wrestling, get the push to go to the main event. Never did. And you put their music on now and listen to it, and you're like, Jesus Christ, why did these guys make it? Why aren't these guys bigger than what they are? Robin Trower, one of my favorite guitar players of all time, that started a pro called Harem. He doesn't get mentioned if you mention like great guitar players in like a top 10 version of people's list. And it's a tragedy to me, because you really get down and cut it to the bone and listen to some of this stuff. And it's like, Jesus, how is this not bigger than it is? Robin Trower, to me, is one of those guys that should be in the top, at least the top 10, if not top 7 or 8, for sure. And then there's so many. There's another band that I loved listening to growing up that never got the push. It's in the metal era, Lizzie Borden from Los Angeles. Lizzie Borden was a great metal band as far as I was concerned, because they kept the integrity and didn't go all weird glammy, even though the video Me Against the World is all painted silver. But the music, it kept kind of that edge, kind of that I'm going to cut your throat edge. So yeah, Bottles, you got some suggestions on that one as well. I know you do.
I do. The Lawrence Welk Orchestra. I think their version of Rum and Coca-Cola was underrated. I think their version of Begin the Begin.
I'm talking about, Bottles, right there.
They were overlooked, underrated. A 1 and a 2 and a 3. The accordion work of Myron Florin on lead accordion was classic. When they did the Beer Barrel Polka and they broke that out, I almost creamed my jeans. I was fully turgid. No, seriously. Foghat. For me, Foghat. Roger Earl, Craig McGregor, Rod Price, Lonesome Dave Peverett. One of the greatest unsung rock and roll singers of all time.
Yes.
Lonesome Dave Peverett. Driving Wheel. When you hear those,
exactly. Listen to him.
You hear those opening notes of Driving Wheel, the hair will stand up on your arms. I defy anybody to play Stone Blue by Foghat and drive down the road and not go faster.
Yep.
Not turn that thing up and drive faster. And it's about driving down the road faster, blasting that. Donnie Graves, Jethro Tull, the Atlanta Rhythm Section never gets any love.
Nice. That's right. Damn right. I love ARS, baby.
Yeah. So Into You. We mentioned her song earlier, So Into You.
Yeah. And then
Imaginary Lover.
Oh, Imaginary Lover. Alien. Yeah. That was the one they did. Dude, that ARS is great. And one of the best looking bass players in the history of rock and roll.
Is that sarcasm?
No. Yes, but no. He is a wonderful man, and he looks like he should be conducting a church, okay? But he is one of my favorite bass players. If you listen to how tight he is, and Paul Goddard is one of the greatest bass players of all time. He died in '83, but go back and look at some of the videos of what he looked like, and look at some of the old pictures. Look at some of the albums. He did not look like a musician, but he was always in the pocket as a musician. And anytime you hear an ARS song, you're like, there he is.
Atlanta Rhythm Section. A lot of those guys were studio musicians when they started out, and they played on all the Classic Fours albums. Remember the Classic Four?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Love Is Kind of Crazy with a Spooky Little Girl Like You. That song, Spooky.
Spooky Little.
And they covered it.
That's right. They
did. Traces. That's so Faded Photographs. Cover Now with Lines and whatever. They were ballads, those songs. Where Spooky had a little bit of a funky groove to it. But Traces was a big hit for the Classics 4. Look that one up on YouTube.
He said Jethro Tull, too. That's another one, man.
Locomotive Breath, Bungle in the Jungle, Aqualung, my friend.
Aqualung, the lyrics.
Don't you go away uneasy.
Holy shit, dude. And
what a stage presence that guy was, man. Ian Anderson.
Ian Anderson is still one of the richest guys in the world in music because he saved every penny he made.
And invested well.
And invested well. He's a very wealthy man still because he was smart with his cash. Unlike some of the other musicians just squandered it all away, which, hey, shit, I might have done that. Who knows?
He bought a lot of land in the English countryside which was renovated, and businesses were built on it, homes were built on it, and he just reaped the rewards from all that. So yeah, Ian Anderson.
Agreed. And do you remember the band? This one might throw 38 Special. Another band that had some pretty big hits, but they still don't get mentioned. And like when people start talking Southern rock greats, they kind of get not the credit they deserve, as far as I'm concerned. Wet Willie was another one that had some pretty damn good songs.
When you said 38 Special,
yes, sir.
There's layers to 38 Special, because a guy that wrote a lot of the hits and produced those songs was the lead songwriter, guitarist, and singer for a group called the Ides of March. Remember that song, Vehicle? I'm your vehicle, baby. I'll take you anywhere you want to go.
Yes, sir.
That guy wrote songs and produced albums for 38 Special. He wrote songs and produced albums for, and he was a member of the group Survivor.
Oh. No shit.
Yes.
He was in Survivor?
He was in Survivor. There's a lot of, I'm trying to remember the guy's name now. The songs he wrote, I Can't Hold Back, Eye of the Tiger, What If I've Been the One to Say Goodbye, Rockin' Into the Night.
What song is that? I mean, Eye of the Tiger, really? I've never heard that song, Bottles. What are you talking about? You go to Spotify and look at Eye of the Tiger. Anyone do this and check this out. This son of a bitch, this song gets played. Let's see.
Guy's name is Jim Peterick.
Jim Peterick. 1 billion plays a month Eye of the Tiger gets. Wow.
The great Jim Peterick. If you saw him now, he looks like he should be hosting a game show in Great Britain. He's got like the sequin jacket with all the rings on his fingers. He's got purple hair, all teased up and piled up. He's still dressing like the mid 1980s. And
God bless him. Good for him.
He's written so many great songs and produced so many great albums and discovered so many. I mean, he gave a career to Jimmy Jamison, the man who sang High on You, Can't Hold Back, The Search Is Over. When they got rid of Dave Sundler, I think his name was Dave Sundler, the original lead singer of Survivor. That's the guy who sang Eye of the Tiger. Yes. They thought, what are we going to do now? What are we going to do? Well, he found Jimmy Jamison, brought him in, and the rest is history right there. And Jimmy left us, unfortunately, a couple years ago. He passed away from, I believe it was some sort of heart ailment that he had. And
a lot of people don't realize that Survivor were Canucks, too. Oh, Canada. They were Canadian.
Were they really? I did not know that. There's another song by them that doesn't get any love. Well, this is by 38 Special. Rockin' Into the Night.
Yeah, buddy. Great. Too.
And 38 Special wrote a song for the Super Troopers, the movie. I can believe it.
Hell yeah.
Oh, and another one by 38 Special. Caught Up in You.
Caught Up in You. That one. My God. What a song.
Yeah.
What a song. And they did also a song for Revenge of the Nerds 2 movie.
Really?
Yes, they did.
Interesting. They did. Yep. Very interesting. Very interesting. Well, Big Daddy-O, we've been going for about an hour right now.
I think it might be time to call Mr. Bottles until the next time, my friend.
Well, what are we going to tell them? I say it every time. You tell them. Subscribe.
Like, subscribe. Join, find an SCM member on Twitter. Find us. We are here to hang out, have a good time, be the guy in the back seat on a long road trip talking everything you want to talk to about. Please join us. Please subscribe us. Thank you if you do watch the show. Really, truly appreciate it. All the guys that chimed in today, thank you guys very much. It's still a work in progress, but we are gaining ground slowly but surely and making some damn good steps.
Do you know why?
Tell me.
Because we're motherfucking professionals.
You goddamn right we are. Okay? We are professionals at this shit. We're fans of music. We're fans of wrestling. We're fans of football. We're fans of everything pop culture wise. Another thing coming up too. Stay tuned. we're going to have a pop culture podcast coming up. So when the details come out,
What?
yep. And I think this guy over here is going to be headlining that thing too. So
I don't think that guy right there is going to be with me.
Yes, I am.
Yes.
Yes, I am. Just
yes.
Yes, I am. So
and the guys you saw chiming in with the comments today, they were SCM members. And the SCM stands for Squared Circle Maniacs. That's how we got our start on Twitter. And I ran into a bunch of these guys when I first got on Twitter. And I ran into this man right here to my right, who I can proudly call a good friend of mine, even though
thank you, Mr. Bottles.
I just dropped my phone on the floor, even though we've never met in person.
Never.
We've just met this way. This is almost like a Zoom call. I love these guys. They're fantastic. What we try to do in all these shows that we do on this channel is just a couple of guys who are passionate about the subject, and we know a little bit about what we're talking about. A couple of guys sitting around in a bar or in the living room having a few drinks and shooting a shit about stuff that we like. And that's what we do. And if you want to join the SCM, talk to that guy right there on Twitter. You've got his Twitter handle right there at Motorhead711. DM Motorhead, and he'll tell you what you have to do. It doesn't cost any money, folks.
No, man. We just
nothing like that at all. Just you know, you can join the group. There's certain parameters you have to follow, and don't be a dick. All right.
That's first and foremost. Don't be a dick. And in the immortal words of the professional wrestling trade or the carnival business, kayfabe is always accepted.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's time.
Bottles, let's end the show. Sayonara, people.